I never thought I'd see my ex-husband's mistress at my father's funeral. Her presence was about to turn an already difficult day into a complete nightmare. As I stood by the gravesite, my children Liam and Arya huddled close to me, their faces etched with grief. The past few years had been a struggle, working multiple jobs to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table since the divorce from their father, Ethan. Ethan stood across from us, his expression a mask of feigned sorrow. I knew better. His manipulative nature had torn our family apart, and now he had the audacity to show up here with her. Scarlett, the woman who had wrecked our marriage, clung to Ethan's arm, her designer dress and perfectly coiffed hair a stark contrast to the somber occasion. As the service concluded, I heard her whisper to Ethan, "I don't know why you insisted on coming. It's not like you cared about the old man." Rage boiled within me, but I maintained my composure for the sake of my children. Liam, ever the protective brother at 16, wrapped an arm around 14-year-old Arya's shoulders as she wiped away tears. Ethan approached us, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "Jade, I'm so sorry for your loss. If there's anything I can do—" "Save it," I snapped, keeping my voice low to avoid causing a scene. "We both know you're only here for appearances." His eyes narrowed, and for a moment I saw the real Ethan, the one who had gaslit me, denied his affair, and painted me as an unfit mother during our custody battle. The one who had used his wealth and influence to rip my children away from me. As we walked back to the car, Arya tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, I heard Scarlett making fun of us. She said we were pathetic and that Dad was better off without us." My heart shattered, and I pulled my daughter into a tight embrace. "Don't listen to her, sweetie. Your father loves you, even if he has a funny way of showing it sometimes." Liam scoffed, his voice bitter. "Yeah, right. If he loved us, he wouldn't have cheated on you and then lied about it in court." I sighed, wishing I could shield them from the harsh realities of our situation. But they were old enough to understand the truth, and they deserved honesty from me. As we drove home in silence, my mind raced with the revelations of the day. The pain of losing my father was compounded by the humiliation of seeing Ethan and Scarlett together, flaunting their relationship without a care for the damage they'd caused. But beneath the grief and anger, a flicker of determination ignited within me. I refused to let them win, to let them destroy the love and trust I'd built with my children. Somehow, I would find a way to expose Ethan's true nature and reclaim the life he had stolen from us. For now, though, I had to be strong for Liam and Arya. They needed me more than ever, and I would not let them down. As we pulled into the driveway of our modest home, I took a deep breath and prepared to face the challenges ahead, one day at a time. The day I discovered Ethan's affair started like any other. I was juggling 2 part-time jobs while trying to keep up with Liam and Arya's hectic schedules. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the couch after getting the kids to bed, only to realize I'd left my phone in Ethan's car earlier that evening. Ethan had been distant and irritable for months, always claiming work stress whenever I questioned his late nights at the office. Suspicion gnawed at me as I retrieved my phone from his glove compartment, my heart dropping when I saw the string of texts from an unknown number. "I can't wait to see you tonight, baby. I'll wear that little black dress you love so much. You make me feel alive, Ethan. I never knew love could be this intense." Hands shaking, I scrolled through the messages, each one a dagger to my heart. Explicit photos, declarations of love, and worst of all, cruel jabs at my appearance and parenting. Ethan found me in the kitchen, tears streaming down my face as I clutched the phone. "How could you do this to me, to our family?" I choked out, my voice breaking. He snatched the phone from my hands, his expression twisting into a sneer. "Don't be so dramatic, Jade. It's just a little fun on the side. It's not like you've been much of a wife lately, always nagging and looking like a slob." "A little fun? You're having an affair, Ethan. You promised to be faithful, to love and cherish me." I couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. "Love and cherish? Please, I settled for you. You should be grateful I stuck around this long with your constant whining and mediocre looks." Each word felt like a slap, his casual cruelty shattering the illusion of the man I'd married. "I won't let you treat me like this, Ethan. I want a divorce." His laughter was cold and mocking. "A divorce? Go ahead, but don't expect a dime from me. I'll make sure the court sees you for the unfit mother you are, unstable, neglectful, and too stupid to keep a man satisfied." In that moment, I saw the true depths of his manipulation and deceit. The man I'd loved, the father of my children, was nothing more than a cruel, selfish monster. The following weeks were a blur of lawyers, court dates, and Ethan's increasingly erratic behavior. He'd show up at my job, hurling insults and accusations in front of my coworkers. He'd cancel plans with the kids at the last minute, leaving them heartbroken and confused. Despite my best efforts to shield Liam and Arya from the worst of it, they couldn't help but notice the changes in their father. Liam grew sullen and withdrawn, while Arya clung to me, her nightmares increasing in frequency. The final blow came when Ethan's high-powered lawyer painted me as a paranoid, unstable woman in court. They twisted my words, making it seem like I was the one at fault for the breakdown of our marriage. In the end, the judge granted Ethan primary custody, citing his financial stability and my emotional issues. As I watched my children walk out of the courtroom with their father, their eyes filled with confusion and pain, I felt like my world had shattered. But even in my darkest moments, a flicker of determination refused to be extinguished. I would not let Ethan win, would not let him destroy the bond I had with my children. Somehow, I would find a way to expose his true nature and reclaim the life he had stolen from us. As I lay awake that night, the first seeds of a plan began to take root in my mind. I would need to be smart, to gather evidence and build a case against Ethan. It wouldn't be easy, but I had no choice. For Liam and Arya, for the love and trust we shared, I would fight with every ounce of strength I possessed. The divorce papers arrived on a sunny Tuesday afternoon, a stark contrast to the storm raging inside me. Ethan had filed citing my paranoia and instability as the reason for the dissolution of our marriage. The irony was not lost on me. I stood in the kitchen, the papers trembling in my hands as Liam and Arya walked in from school. Their laughter died on their lips as they took in my ashen face and the telltale envelope on the counter. "Mom, what's going on?" Liam asked, his voice laced with concern. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation I'd been dreading. "Your father has filed for divorce. He's making some very hurtful accusations about me, about my ability to be a good mother." Arya's eyes filled with tears. "But that's not true. You're the best mom ever. Why would Dad say those things?" I pulled her into a tight hug, my heart breaking at the confusion and pain in her voice. "Sometimes people say and do cruel things when they're angry or hurt. Your father is not thinking clearly right now." Liam's jaw clenched, his fists balled at his sides. "It's because of that woman, isn't it? The one he's been seeing behind your back." I nodded, not trusting my voice to remain steady. My children were too perceptive, too aware of the cracks in our family's foundation. The custody battle that followed was a nightmare. Ethan's wealthy family hired a ruthless lawyer, a shark in a designer suit who seemed to take pleasure in tearing me apart on the stand. They painted me as an unfit mother, unstable and neglectful, while portraying Ethan as the doting father who only wanted the best for his children. I watched helplessly as Ethan charmed the judge with his smooth words and easy smile, the same smile that had once made me weak in the knees. Now, it only filled me with a simmering rage. Despite my lawyer's best efforts, the odds were stacked against me. Ethan's influence and money spoke louder than the truth, and in the end, the judge granted him primary custody of Liam and Arya. The gavel fell with a sickening finality, and I felt my world tilt on its axis. My children, my heart and soul, were being ripped away from me by the man who had promised to love and cherish us. As Liam and Arya walked out of the courtroom with Ethan, their eyes filled with tears and confusion, I caught a glimpse of Scarlett waiting in the hallway. She smirked at me, her red lips curled in a cruel twist of victory. In that moment, something snapped inside me. The pain and grief that had consumed me for months crystallized into a cold, hard determination. I would not let them win. I would not let Ethan and Scarlett destroy the bond I had with my children. I turned to my lawyer, my voice steady and resolute. "I want to appeal the decision. I want to fight for my kids with everything I have." He nodded, his eyes softening with understanding. "It won't be easy, Jade. Ethan has a lot of resources at his disposal." "I don't care," I replied, my gaze unwavering. I will not let him take my children from me. I will find a way to expose the truth, to show the court what kind of man he really is. As I walked out of the courthouse, the sun on my face and a newfound purpose in my heart, I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But I also knew that I would never stop fighting for Liam and Arya, for the love and trust we shared. Ethan and Scarlett may have won this battle, but the war was far from over. I would gather my strength, my evidence, and my allies. And when the time was right, I would strike back with a vengeance they never saw coming. The call came in the middle of the night, jolting me from a restless sleep. My mother's voice, choked with tears, delivered the news I'd been dreading for months. My father was gone, his battle with cancer finally over. I sat in stunned silence, the phone heavy in my hand as the reality of the loss washed over me. My father, my rock, the one person who had always believed in me, even when I doubted myself, was no longer there to guide me through life's storms. The funeral was a somber affair, a sea of black dresses and suits against the gray backdrop of the cemetery. I stood by the gravesite, Liam and Arya huddled close to me, their faces etched with grief and confusion. As the service concluded, I heard a familiar laugh, one that sent a chill down my spine. I turned to see Scarlett, draped over Ethan's arm like a designer accessory. She caught my eye and smirked, her gaze filled with a cruel satisfaction. I watched as they approached, my heart pounding in my chest. Ethan's face was a mask of feigned sympathy, his voice dripping with insincerity as he offered his condolences. "Jade, I'm so sorry for your loss. Your father was a good man." I bit back the bitter retort that rose to my lips, not wanting to cause a scene in front of my children, but Scarlett had no such qualms. "It's such a shame," she cooed, her voice saccharine sweet. "I'm sure he would have loved to see his grandchildren more often, but I guess that's just not possible now, is it?" I felt Liam stiffen beside me, his hands clenched into fists. Arya's eyes filled with tears, her bottom lip trembling. "How dare you?" I hissed, keeping my voice low. "This is a funeral, not a place for your petty games." Scarlett's smile only widened, her eyes glinting with malice. "Oh, Jade, you just don't know when you've lost, do you? Ethan and I are the future. You and your little brats are nothing but a distant memory." I saw red, my vision blurring with rage. But before I could respond, Liam stepped forward, his voice shaking with anger. "You're wrong. Our mom is the strongest person I know, and she will never give up on us. You and Dad may have won in court, but you'll never have what we have. Love, loyalty, and the truth on our side." Ethan's face twisted into a sneer, his mask of sympathy slipping away. "Watch your mouth, boy. I'm still your father, and you will show me respect." Arya clung to my arm, her voice small but determined. "You're not our father. A real father would never treat his family the way you have. We may have to live with you, but you'll never have our love or respect." I felt a surge of pride and love for my children, their bravery and strength shining through even in the darkest of moments. I wrapped my arms around them, drawing them close. "We should go," I said, my voice steady and calm. "We have nothing more to say to them." As we walked away, I heard Scarlett's mocking laughter, her words echoing in my ears. "Run along, little family. We'll see who has the last laugh in the end." But even as the pain and anger threatened to consume me, I felt a flicker of hope ignite in my chest. My father, even in death, had given me a gift, a reminder of the love and strength that bound our family together, no matter what challenges we faced. I may have lost the battle in court, but the war was far from over. With Liam and Arya by my side, I would find a way to expose Ethan and Scarlett's true nature, to reclaim the life that had been stolen from us. As we drove away from the cemetery, the sun breaking through the clouds, I made a silent vow to my father's memory. I would not rest until justice was served, until my children were safe and happy once more. No matter the cost, no matter the sacrifice, I would fight for our family with every ounce of strength I possessed. A week after the funeral, I found myself sorting through my father's belongings, a task that felt both surreal and overwhelming. As I sifted through the boxes of papers and mementos, a small, leather-bound journal caught my eye. With trembling hands, I opened the cover, my father's familiar handwriting staring back at me. As I read through the pages, my heart began to race, the pieces of a puzzle I hadn't even known existed falling into place. My father, it seemed, had been secretly gathering evidence of Ethan's affair and his mistreatment of our family. There were copies of incriminating emails, photos of Ethan and Scarlett together, and detailed accounts of the lies and manipulation he had witnessed firsthand. I felt a surge of gratitude and love for my father, even as the pain of his loss hit me anew. He had been looking out for us, even when I thought I was alone in my fight. I knew I needed help to make sense of the information, to build a case against Ethan that would stand up in court. And there was only one person I could trust with such a task: my brother. Jake had always been the tech-savvy one in the family. A skilled hacker with a penchant for uncovering secrets, he was the perfect ally in my quest for justice. I called him that night, my voice shaking with a mix of excitement and fear. "Jake, I need your help. It's about Ethan." There was a pause on the other end of the line, followed by a heavy sigh. "I was wondering when you'd call. I've been doing some digging of my own, and let's just say our dear ex-brother-in-law has been a very busy man." Over the next few weeks, Jake and I worked tirelessly to uncover the extent of Ethan and Scarlett's misdeeds. We pored over bank statements and phone records, hacked into email accounts and social media profiles. What we found was a web of lies and deceit that went far beyond a simple affair. Ethan had been embezzling money from his company, funneling it into offshore accounts with Scarlett's help. They had been planning to run away together, leaving me and the children with nothing. But the most damning evidence of all was the trail of fraud and forgery that led straight to Ethan's door. He had been using his position at the company to secure illegal contracts, bribing officials, and cooking the books to cover his tracks. I felt a cold fury wash over me as I stared at the screen, the evidence of Ethan's betrayal laid bare before me. He had destroyed our family, our future, all for his own selfish gain. But now I had the power to destroy him. With the evidence we had gathered, I could expose his crimes to the world, bring him to his knees, and watch as he lost everything he held dear. I turned to Jake, my eyes blazing with determination. I want to confront him. I want to look him in the eye and watch as he realizes that he's lost, that he's finally going to pay for what he's done. Jake nodded, a grim smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "I thought you'd never ask. Let's bring this bastard down once and for all." As we began to formulate our plan, I felt a sense of purpose and strength that I hadn't known in years. I had been a victim for too long, a pawn in Ethan's twisted game, but now I was taking control of my own destiny, fighting back with everything I had. I thought of Liam and Aria, of the love and trust that bound us together. I thought of my father, of the legacy of courage and resilience he had left behind. And I knew, with a certainty that burned bright in my soul, that I would not rest until justice was served, until my family was whole once more. Ethan and Scarlett may have thought they had won, but they had no idea what was coming for them. The game was far from over, and this time I was playing to win. The confrontation with Ethan was set to take place at his office, a sleek, modern space that reeked of his arrogance and greed. I walked in with my head held high, the evidence of his misdeeds tucked securely in my bag. Ethan looked up from his desk as I entered, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. "Jade, what are you doing here? I thought I made it clear that I don't want you anywhere near my work." I smiled, a cold, mirthless thing that felt foreign on my face. "Oh, I think you'll want to hear what I have to say, Ethan. You see, I've been doing some digging, and I've uncovered some very interesting things about you and your little girlfriend." I watched as his face paled, his hands clenching into fists on the desk. "I don't know what you're talking about. If this is about the divorce, I suggest you take it up with my lawyer." I laughed, the sound harsh and bitter in the quiet of the room. "This goes far beyond the divorce, Ethan. I'm talking about embezzlement, fraud, forgery. I'm talking about the illegal contracts and bribes, the offshore accounts, and secret plans to run away with Scarlett." Ethan's eyes widened, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "You're crazy. You have no proof, no evidence of any of this." I reached into my bag, pulling out the thick file of documents and photos. "Actually, I have all the proof I need right here. Emails, bank statements, phone records, all of it leading straight to you and your little scheme." I watched as the color drained from his face, his eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. "What do you want, Jade? Money? The house? I'll give you whatever you want, just don't go to the police. I shook my head, a grim satisfaction welling up inside me. I don't want your money, Ethan. I want justice. I want you to know what it feels like to lose everything, to have your world come crashing down around you. He lunged forward, his hand slamming down on the desk. You bitch, you think you can threaten me? I'll destroy you. I'll make sure you never see those brats again. I flinched at the venom in his voice, but I refused to back down. It's too late for that, Ethan. I've already sent copies of everything to the authorities, to your company's board of directors. You're finished, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Just then, the door to the office burst open, and Liam and Arya rushed in, their faces flushed with anger and betrayal. We heard everything, Dad. How could you do this to us, to Mom? Liam's voice was shaking, his fists clenched at his sides. Arya's eyes were filled with tears, her bottom lip trembling. You lied to us. You made us think Mom was the bad one. But it was you all along, you and that horrible woman. Ethan's face twisted into a snarl, his true nature finally laid bare for all to see. You ungrateful little bastards! I gave you everything, and this is how you repay me? I stepped forward, placing myself between Ethan and my children. Enough, Ethan. It's over. You've lost, and there's no coming back from this. As if on cue, the sound of sirens filled the air, the flashing lights of police cars visible through the office windows. I watched as Ethan's face crumpled, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. The police burst through the door, their guns drawn and their faces grim. Ethan Thompson, you're under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and bribery. You have the right to remain silent. As they led him away in handcuffs, I felt a wave of relief wash over me, the weight of years of pain and betrayal finally lifting from my shoulders. I turned to Liam and Arya, pulling them into a tight embrace. It's over, my loves. We're free now, free to start over and build a new life together. And as we walked out of that office, hand in hand, I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, we would face them together as a family. Ethan may have tried to break us, but in the end, our love and our strength had prevailed, and that was a victory that no one could ever take away from us. The family court hearing was set for a sunny Tuesday morning, the irony of the weather not lost on me as I walked up the steps of the courthouse, Liam and Arya by my side. We had been through so much together, weathered so many storms, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling of nervousness that fluttered in my stomach. As we took our seats in the courtroom, I caught sight of Ethan and Scarlett, huddled together at the defendant's table. Ethan's face was a mask of anger and resentment, while Scarlett looked pale and drawn, her usually perfect facade cracking under the weight of the evidence against them. The judge called the hearing to order, her voice firm and authoritative. We are here today to determine the custody arrangement for Liam and Arya Thompson, in light of the recent criminal charges against their father, Ethan Thompson. I watched as Liam and Arya took the stand, their voices shaking, but their words clear and true. They spoke of the neglect and emotional abuse they had suffered at the hands of their father, of the lies and manipulation that had torn our family apart. He was never there for us, not really, Liam said, his eyes fixed on Ethan. He was too busy with work with Scarlett. He made us feel like we were a burden, like we were holding him back from the life he really wanted. Arya's testimony was even more heartbreaking, her voice small and trembling, as she recounted the nights she had spent crying herself to sleep, wondering what she had done wrong to make her daddy stop loving her. I felt a surge of pride and love for my children, for their bravery and resilience in the face of such pain and betrayal. They were the reason I had fought so hard, the reason I had never given up hope, even in my darkest moments. As the hearing went on, the evidence against Ethan and Scarlett mounted, the depths of their deceit and cruelty laid bare for all to see. Bank statements, phone records, emails, all of it pointing to a web of lies and manipulation that had nearly destroyed our family. And then, in a moment that took everyone by surprise, Scarlett took the stand, her face a mask of guilt and regret. I never meant for it to go this far, she said, her voice shaking. I thought I loved Ethan, thought he loved me, but I see now that he was just using me, just like he used everyone else in his life. She turned to face me, her eyes filled with tears. Jade, I'm so sorry for the pain I caused you and your children. I was selfish and foolish, and I let myself be blinded by Ethan's charm and promises. But I see the truth now, and I want to make things right." I felt a wave of emotion wash over me, a mix of anger and pity and something like forgiveness. I had hated Scarlett for so long, had blamed her for the destruction of my marriage and my family. But seeing her now, broken and remorseful, I realized that she was just another victim of Ethan's lies and manipulation. The judge's voice broke through my thoughts, her words clear and decisive. "In light of the overwhelming evidence against Ethan Thompson and the testimony of his children and former partner, I am granting full custody of Liam and Arya to their mother, Jade Thompson. Mr. Thompson will have no visitation rights and will be required to pay child support and alimony as determined by the court." I felt a wave of relief wash over me, tears streaming down my face as I pulled Liam and Arya into a tight embrace. We had won. We were free to start over and build a new life together. As we walked out of the courthouse, the sun warm on our faces, I knew that the road ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges and obstacles, moments of doubt and fear. But we would face them together, as a family, with the love and strength that had carried us through the darkest of times. And as I looked back at the courthouse, at the place where justice had finally been served, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Ethan may have tried to break us, but in the end our love and our truth had prevailed, and that was a victory that no one could ever take away from us. The months following the custody hearing were a whirlwind of change and new beginnings. With Ethan out of our lives and the truth of his crimes exposed, Liam, Arya, and I were finally free to start over, to build the life we had always dreamed of. We moved into a new home, a cozy little house with a big backyard and plenty of room for our family to grow. It was a far cry from the lavish mansion Ethan had insisted on, but to us it was perfect. I watched as Liam and Arya blossomed in their new environment, their laughter and smiles coming more easily with each passing day. They made new friends, excelled in their studies, and pursued their passions with a newfound sense of confidence and joy. As for me, I found myself thriving in ways I never thought possible. With the settlement money from the divorce and the inheritance from my father's estate, I was able to quit my dead-end jobs and focus on my true calling, writing. I poured my heart and soul into my work, channeling the pain and struggles of the past into stories of hope and resilience. And to my amazement, people responded. My books became bestsellers, my words touching the lives of readers around the world. But even as I celebrated my successes, I never forgot the lessons I had learned, the strength I had found in the darkest of times. I made sure to be there for Liam and Arya, to listen to their fears and dreams, to remind them every day how much they were loved. We were happy, truly happy, for the first time in years. But still, a part of me couldn't help but wonder about Ethan, about the man who had once been my husband and the father of my children. I got my answer one day when I received a phone call from his lawyer. Ethan had been sentenced to 10 years in prison for his crimes, his once promising career and reputation in tatters. I felt a strange mix of emotions as I hung up the phone. Relief, sadness, a sense of closure that I hadn't even realized I needed. Ethan had made his choices, had chosen his own path of destruction and deceit. But in the end, he was the one who had lost everything, while the kids and I had found a new beginning. A few weeks later, I found myself sitting in the visitor's room of the prison, face to face with the man who had once been my entire world. Ethan looked older, broken, his eyes filled with a desperation I had never seen before. "Jade," he said, his voice hoarse and trembling. "I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness, but I need you to know how sorry I am. For everything." I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized that I no longer felt the anger and betrayal that had once consumed me. In its place was a sense of pity, of sadness for the man who had thrown away everything that truly mattered in life. "I forgive you, Ethan," I said softly. "Not for you, but for myself, for Liam and Arya. We deserve to be free of the pain and the anger to move on with our lives." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Take care of them, Jade. They deserve the world." I left the prison that day feeling lighter, freer than I had in years. I knew that the scars of the past would always be with us, but I also knew that we had the strength and the love to overcome anything that life threw our way. As I walked out into the sunlight, I felt a sense of hope and possibility wash over me. The future was bright, and I knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, the kids and I would face them together, as a family. And that was a promise I intended to keep for the rest of my days.